This is my first video update coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Thursday morning. Let's talk about some news. And we have got this CNN report that CIA director, Mr. Burns, made a secret trip to Ukraine in early October. And the purpose of this trip from the CIA director, according to CNN, was to reinforce the U.S. commitment to provide support to Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression, including continued intelligence sharing. This is according to CNN. So this is a long way for Burns to go in order to just tell the Zelensky regime that the U.S. remains committed to Project Ukraine and that they're going to continue to share intelligence. But the timing of this trip is very interesting. Early October. I would imagine that in early October, the Russian intel services were gathering all kinds of information with regards to, I don't know, say provocations, false flags, dirty bombs, stuff like that. Who knows? I'm just speculating. But why is CNN being allowed to let us know about a secret trip from the CIA director? Because CNN would not be publishing this if they didn't get the green light from the CIA to publish it. So very interesting revelation from CNN. Why they're being allowed to let us know about this trip is interesting. The timing, the time frame that Burns was in Kiev on this secret trip is interesting, and the narrative that he was just there to pledge the U.S.'s support to Zelensky and to say, yeah, we'll continue to share intel. Well, that's something you could have done over the phone, right? You could have probably Skyped Zelensky and said, hey, Zelensky, I just want to let you know that we're still committed to you guys, and we're going to shell intel. Take care. See you later. Do they still use Skype anymore? I don't know. Zoom. You could Zoom Zelensky. Anyway, you had the Russian the Russian defense minister, Sergei Shoigu. He called his Russian and Chinese counterparts, the defense ministers of Russia and China. He called them to let them know that Russia does have the intel, it has the goods about a dirty bomb, and he filled them in with all the intel that they have and the alleged plans of the Ukrainians to create or to detonate some sort of dirty bombs. So he actually called the Chinese and the Indian defense ministers to let them know, which means that Russia does really have the intel. They really do have the intel. Otherwise, I don't think Shoigu would be contacting the Indians and the Chinese if they didn't have the receipts to back it up, to let them know about this possible provocation. And Russian President Putin, well, he was speaking to CIS, former Soviet Republic leaders and heads of security, and he was speaking to them via video, and he let them know that that Russia is well aware of Ukraine's dirty bomb provocations. This is what Putin said. He said that Ukraine has become a tool of U.S. foreign policy. The country has effectively lost its sovereignty and is now being directly controlled by the U.S., who use it as a battering ram against Russia, against our union state, with the Republic of Belarus, and against the CSTO and the CIS in general. Kiev's example clearly shows the United States' true attitude to their satellites. The Ukrainian territory was turned into a proving ground. This is a quote, a proving ground for military biological experiments. And now they pump it with weapons, including heavy ones, and turn a blind eye to Kiev's desire to obtain nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, Russia is aware about Ukraine's plans to use a so-called dirty bomb for provocations. It's interesting that Putin, who's very careful with words, says that Russia is aware about Ukraine's plans, as if he's saying that this was indeed something that the state of Ukraine was planning. He doesn't say that Russia is well aware of certain forces in and around Ukraine, perhaps trying to do something like that. He says Ukraine's plans, and of course this is an English translation as provided by the Russian news agency TASS, but Putin is very careful with his words, and he says Ukraine's plans. He also ties Ukraine and Ukraine's plans directly to the United States, which is also an interesting statement from Putin. He basically is saying that Ukraine does not do anything without the permission of the U.S. and that, what does he call it? A battering ram, that Ukraine is being used as a battering ram. And so if you're Russia and you're involved in this conflict with the collective West and you've got this battering ram right next door to you, what do you do? How do you handle a battering ram? How do you handle something that's being used against your country to knock it down? That is what a battering ram does, doesn't it? Just knocks down structures. So what do you do if you have this battering ram sitting right next to you? I think this gives a little bit more of an indication as to what Russia's plans are in the next month or two. And you have Shoigu speaking to the defense ministers, but that's also a bit of diplomacy from Shoigu, because when he speaks to China and India and he talks to them about this stuff, all it does is it hardens the Indian and the Chinese stance in support of Russia, because they take a look at this intel, and I imagine Shoigu shared some of this intel with them, and they take a look at this intel and they say, we're with you, Russia, because these guys are a bit cuckoo for Cocoa Pops, as they say. And to be honest, the media campaign that Russia has run with regards to this dirty bomb, and it has been a type of media campaign because Russia really got in front of this story. They made sure it was all over the place. Everyone was talking about it. They went to the UN as well. They raised a stink at the UN. They called France. They called Austin at the US at the US Defense Department. They called Ben Wallace, the UK Defense Minister. They made sure that everyone knew about what they believe to be some sort of dirty bomb provocation. This media campaign has been very effective, and I think I said in a video a couple of days ago that this sunlight that they're shining on this dirty bomb provocation is going to make it very difficult for the provocateurs to achieve their goals, because a false flag connected to some sort of WMD now becomes very, very difficult. Very, very difficult to pull that one off now. It's not a secret that they can just throw into the Ukraine conflict, can they? And so this disseminating of dirty bomb information and narratives has worked, because we are getting reports. Let me get into the shade here so I can read this. We are getting reports that Kiev might be shelving its alleged dirty bomb program after Russia exposed it. This is according to Moscow's Deputy Permanent Representative to the UN, Dmitry Polyansky, who said this on Tuesday. He added that Ukraine may well have time to do this before the upcoming nuclear inspection. In other words, he's saying that before the IAEA lands in Ukraine to inspect a couple of nuclear facilities, Ukraine is now going to be working to cover their tracks, because the Russians have have blown the cover of this potential false flag provocation. So now Ukraine is scrambling, according to various sources, they're scrambling to cover their tracks and to make it appear that they had no dirty bomb stuff going on. This is according to the UN representative, Polyansky. So it worked. If this is indeed all true, if all of this is true, well then it worked. It has thwarted the planned provocation of Ukraine and perhaps the collective West to try and bait NATO into the conflict. Anyway, that is an update with regards to the dirty bomb. Since we're talking about, or at least since Putin brought up Belarus, we have news that another sanctions package, courtesy of the European Union, is being put together. But this sanctions package, because there's really not much left to sanction with regards to Russia, this sanction package is going to focus on Belarus. Yeah, that's what they're going to sanction now, is another country, because they're done sanctioning Russia. Now they have to turn towards Belarus. This is going to be like sanctions package, what's the number, 10, 11, 12, 15, 55, sanctions package 55. Anyway, now they're going to focus on Belarus. I wonder if the EU is just going to start sanctioning just different countries as they go from package to package. You know, tomorrow is going to be Belarus. In a month's time, it'll be Kazakhstan, and then India, and then China, and then just country after country, until they've sanctioned every country that's not a member state of the European Union. Anyway, that's what's going on with the latest in sanctions news and the European Union and Belarus. And a couple more stories here. We have the draft bill on Finland's NATO membership, and this draft bill has been released. And the interesting part about this document, which makes the case for Finland to enter NATO, is that it contains no restrictions on Finland having bases, NATO bases on their territory, or having nuclear weapons on their soil. So Finland is going to make the case to NATO why they should join the alliance. And as they make the case in this document that they've submitted to NATO, they're basically saying we should absolutely be a part of NATO because, well, we'll let NATO troops hang out in our country. And even more important, we'll allow nuclear weapons. You can park your nukes in Finland right next to Russia. That's not going to sit well with the Russians, is it? That's not going to sit well at all. And so we have this document now, which is in the public sphere, or at least portions of this document now have been made public. I remember when Miss Sanna, the rock star Dirty Dancing Prime Minister of Finland, I remember when everyone was talking about Finland joining NATO way back, like 7 months ago. She said, you know, Finland joining NATO is not a big deal because Finland will never allow troops to be stationed in Finland, NATO troops to be stationed in Finland, and Finland will never, ever allow nuclear weapons to be stationed in Finland. That's what she was saying like 6 months ago when this entire Finland-NATO thing was first brought up. And now we've reached the point where in their official documents to enter NATO, Finland is basically saying, bring your nukes here, park your nukes right here. And in this document, Finland also says that, I don't know, is it the document or is it a statement from a Finnish official? It may not be the document. One sec. No, the foreign minister of Finland, Mr. Haavisto, said that this month that Helsinki has received assurances from the US, Britain, and key European countries that the alliance will come to Finland's aid even before it joins the military bloc. In other words, the foreign minister said, yeah, while we've got this application waiting to be approved by Turkey, really, that's who they're waiting for to give the green light, is Erdogan and Turkey. But as they're waiting for that, and as they lobby Turkey to put his stamp of approval to this, if he does that, he wants everyone to know, the foreign minister wants everyone to know that Finland is already kind of a part of NATO anyway, because if something happens, well, NATO's going to come to protect Finland. So he just wants to let everybody know that. That is a huge escalation, nuclear weapons. If Finland were to do that, were to entertain the idea of nuclear weapons, that would not be good. That would not be good at all. We do have U.S. troops in Romania, the 101st Airborne, and the Kremlin has now issued a statement with regards to those troops. The Kremlin said that they know those troops are there. Kremlin spokesman Peskov said, of course they do. But he said that the U.S. troop deployment in Romania increases risks for Russia's security and will prompt Moscow to take countermeasures. So Peskov was speaking to reporters, and he said, the closer American troops are to our borders, the greater danger we are in. Peskov went on to say that Moscow factors in such a military presence while developing its security framework. Peskov reiterated that such deployment on Russia's doorstep does not contribute to predictability and stability. So Russia is planning something very big in about a month's time, give or take, right? And they've put troops in Belarus so that all those troops in Belarus can kind of signal to NATO not to get any crazy ideas about perhaps another coup attempt, perhaps an incursion, some sort of regime change, stirring up some sort of trouble in Belarus. So they've got those troops there, and they're sitting there acting as a deterrent to the NATO borders, to the NATO countries that border Belarus. They've got this dirty bomb thing. They've got this squashed, right? So any false flag provocations that revolve around some sort of WMD, as George W. Bush called it, any provocations in that area have kind of been squashed, right? Even Putin in his statement with the CIS, he mentions the dirty bomb, but he also mentions bio and stuff like that. So the Russians have made sure that the entire world is aware of any type of false flag provocation meant to draw NATO into Ukraine. So they've got that out there. So they've got the Belarus thing tied up. They're making sure that nothing comes towards Belarus. They're making sure that the collective West or Ukraine doesn't get any ideas with regards to a WMD provocation. They're contacting their partners in China and India. They're getting the UN in on this dirty bomb stuff as well, and they're getting the UN to get involved. They've got IAEA. They've actually managed to get IAEA inspectors into Ukraine, even though those IAEA inspectors, they're now having to go to Ukraine under the orders, I imagine, of the United States in order to provide political cover for Zelensky. That's what's happening there. So, Russia raised such a stink about this that in order to provide political and diplomatic cover for Zelensky, the U.S. said, okay, we're going to have to, send these IAEA inspectors to Ukraine. They're going to give Zelensky a clean bill of health, and that'll give Zelensky the political cover to go to the media and say, you see, Russia was lying. I've got no dirty bomb aspirations. But that's why they're doing that. They need to now, figure out ways to provide cover for Zelensky. And according to the UN representative of Russia, Polyansky, Ukraine is actually now trying to dismantle whatever dirty bomb stuff they had going on. Once again, this is according to various reports that Russia is getting with regards to this, and Russia has their eye on the 101st Airborne and the activities in Romania. So, as Russia prepares whatever they're about to do in Ukraine, it looks like they're making sure that everything else, whatever other loose ends may be hanging around there, everything else is being tied up and dealt with, whether it's making sure that China and India remain on side, whether it's locking down Belarus, or keeping your eye out for what's going on in Romania, or making sure that there are no false flag provocations. We talk a lot about preparing the battlefield. This is kind of like Russia preparing the geopolitical situation for the battle that's about to come. That's kind of what it looks like to me. Now, what's going on in Ukraine, before I get to Clown World, the big news is that Surovikin, the general, the commander of the Russian forces in Ukraine, it looks like that his strategy is indeed to fortify Kherson, to build up defensive lines, and to fight. I think it's pretty safe to say now that there's not going to be, unless things go really, really bad, there's not going to be any type of Russian retreat from Kherson in the same way that you had the Russians cede territory in Kharkov. It looks like Surovikin has done a very, very good job of making sure that Russia is ready to defend, and they are going to defend Kherson. And by time, they're going to defend Kherson, demilitarize a bit, buy some time for the next month until they have all their other pieces in place. This is just my thinking, until they have all their other pieces in place to do whatever they're going to do. And in the meantime, they continue to knock out the electric grid in Ukraine. They continue to hit Ukraine with missiles and drones and stuff like that. And now Ukraine was trying to get some air defense systems from Israel. We had some reports that Israel might give them these air defense systems, but now we've gotten a report saying that from Israeli government officials saying, no, we're not going to give you any air defense systems because that's a national security risk. We can't give you these systems because that would endanger our own national security. So that is an update as to what's going on the ground in Ukraine. The Russians are going to defend. I said in a video last week that most likely if something big happens in Kherson, it'll happen this week. We haven't seen anything happen. I mean, Ukrainian forces have tried to break through. They have tried. Small forces. They've tried to break through. They've tried to push towards Kherson city. But every attack that has been mounted by Ukraine to date has been repelled. Now, these have been small forces, Ukrainian forces, that have tried to do this, but they've been absolutely pushed back with every attempt in the direction of Kherson. And actually, the Russians were actually making some headway in the Donetsk region. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to think of the village. Mikhalivka, I believe, is the name of the town or village that the Russians have recaptured from Ukraine. So, in general, things are just static. In general, things are static, and the Russians are going to defend. And if if the info that I'm getting is correct, it looks like Surovikin has really built things up in order to properly defend. And that's gonna buy the Russian military the time it needs over the next couple of weeks to better prepare for what they're about to do. So with that being said, let's do a clown world. And this clown world is, actually, I don't even know if this is a clown world. Maybe I'm going to have to do another clown world instead of this one. But this one has to deal with South Africa. Maybe this is like a reverse clown world. So South Africa, they allowed a Russian billionaire's yacht to dock in Cape Town. South Africa has no intention of enforcing Western sanctions against Russian businessman Alexei Mordashov, meaning his 500 million mega yacht may enter local ports, the spokesman for President Cyril Ramaphosa said on Tuesday. Speaking to reporters, Vincent Magwenya, the spokesman for the South African leader, noted that Pretoria has no legal obligation to abide by sanctions imposed by the US and the EU, adding that the nation's authorities adhere to UN sanctions. However, referring to the Russian tycoon, Magwenya added that currently there are no UN-imposed sanctions on the particular individual. South Africa, therefore, has no reason to prevent the vessel's entry into its ports, he said. Good on South Africa. Good on South Africa. BRICS unity. BRICS unity is real. Absolutely. So South Africa told the collective West in their sanctions to take a hike. They're not going to abide by those types of sanctions because that's not international law. They will abide by UN sanctions, but collective West sanctions, well, they have no place in South Africa. So now let's do a real clown world, because that's kind of like a feel-good story, because it shows that South Africa is indeed a sovereign nation that's going to make decisions in accordance with international law, not in accordance with collective West EU sanction packages. And in this clown world, let me think. Do I have a clown world? Yeah, okay. In this clown world, I'm going to talk about a story that I've actually wanted to talk about for a while now, but I just haven't found the opportunity. It has to do with the Romanian defense minister who had to resign because he talked about peace between Europe and Russia. Vasile Dinciu faced pressure after suggesting Kiev may have to make concessions to reach a peace deal with Russia. Romania's Minister of Defense, Vasile Dinciu, handed his resignation on Monday after incurring a backlash for publicly suggesting that Ukraine may have to give up some territory in order to end the ongoing military conflict with Russia. Dinciu announced he would be stepping down on his Facebook page, stating that he believes it would be impossible for him to collaborate with President Klaus Johannes, who had offered a strong rebuke to his call for peace talks between Moscow and Kiev. Quote, "I consider it necessary to withdraw from this position in order not to prejudice in any way the decision-making processes and programs that require fluidity along the entire chain of command," Dinciu wrote, adding that he is grateful to Prime Minister Nicolae Ciuceau and vowed to support the PM's future initiatives as a senator, a position that he will retain in the Romanian parliament. Earlier this month, Ciuceau said during a televised interview that there should be an international negotiation of a peace deal between Kiev and Moscow that would involve the countries of the world, NATO, and the United States. So because he talked about peace, because he dared mention that Ukraine is going to have to, at this point in time, concede to losing some territory in order to facilitate some sort of a peace deal, well, he got blasted by the powers that be, and he was forced to resign. Just like the Squad yesterday, and 30 Dems and the Squad, they had to retract their little peace deal letter that they sent to Bidenopolis. You cannot stray from the narrative. You have to be 100% compliant, 100% in agreement, lockstep with the globalist Ukrainian project narrative. That is the message that is being sent out. Anyway, that is the clown world, guys. The Duran.locals.com. Look for us on Rockfin as well. The Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOOD DAY. Take care.